Welcome, everybody, to the PCC Institute for Health Professionals podcast. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here now with podcasting veteran KP Khalsa. KP, how are you?
Doing okay from the veteran's point of view.
Well, I deeply appreciate you joining us again. Today, we are taking on traditional Chinese medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine has there is some sort of mysticism about Chinese medicine and what it entails in terms of overall healthcare. And so I trust that you will walk us through traditional Chinese medicine and how it and shed some light on what otherwise may be mysterious for us.
Well, sure, that'd be my pleasure. And let me just say from the outset that even though I guess there's an element of the mystic, it's really more just a different perspective on how the world works and how we understand our bodies that's based more on people's traditional experience of their body rather than relying on medical gizmos.
Well, absolutely. I would say gizmos in general are to be avoided at all costs.
I suppose.
Okay, so how would you like to start this conversation? I assume it would be good to just talk about, from your perspective, what is traditional Chinese medicine?
Yeah, this is the style of medicine that evolved over the past, let's say, 5,000 years or so in East Asia. It's very similar to Ayurveda, the traditional healing system of India that we also teach in our programs. And those two systems came from a common root, obviously. They're about 90% overlapping in terms of their understanding of how the body works and their orientation toward health. Their vocabulary is a bit different, and the herbs that grow in the different areas are different. But if you know one, it's easy to learn the other. One of the interesting things that happened in China over the past century is that China was dominated by a communist regime, and their whole idea was to send out, people have probably heard of the barefoot doctors, but these paramedics who went out into the villages where there was very poor health care. And those folks had about 6 weeks of basic training in field first aid and basic acupuncture and herbalism, and they sent them out by the hundreds. They're very successful. But in order to do that, the government had to standardize their curriculum. So they took a look at all the ancient streams of Chinese medicine that had come together and essentially stripped away all the sort of non-essential cultural orientation and put together a consistent system that they could teach across the whole spectrum of teachers. So that was very valuable for us because it standardized the language, the approach, the vocabulary, the publishing, and since most American practitioners don't speak Chinese, it allowed us to have a window into something that otherwise would have been quite mysterious for a long time.
That's fascinating. How does it relate to, or how does this new standard sort of relate to the kind of availability of what would otherwise traditional Chinese medicinals? I'm thinking here about the you said early on that the context that we're talking about here is as this system of integrative medicine evolved over thousands of years, the relationship of the people to their region and to the native species of plants and available sort of medical products are intricately paired with the people and where they live. How does that relate to bringing Chinese medicine here?
Every traditional culture has stratified their medical education, their medical system, and their medical delivery into usually about 3 levels. And this occurred in Western herbalism, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, all of these, where grandma would know a dozen plants and 20 ways to use each one, and she would treat 90% of what would occur in the family. Then there would be a clan or a village type herbalist, usually another more educated grandmother who might know 50 plants and many other ways to use them, and she'd take care of another 8%. And then the 2% would be taken care of by the educated elite who had a university education or were educated by mentorship. And those folks would take care of the kinds of things that we would think about going to physicians for now. So we ended up having a wave of those educated elite coming here over the last generation and bringing their techniques, their their plants, their products to us. Since there was already a very large expat population of East Asians here for 200 years, they fit right in, these docs, and they began treating the ethnic population. So that created the opportunity for people to see practitioners and to have products available very conveniently and at a very high level. So when the rest of non-Asian Americans began to be aware of Chinese medicine, there was a system very well established in place. We had plenty of Asian doctors, a lot of good products, and it was able to develop very rapidly. So if we go back to when President Nixon went to China, which is kind of when all this started, and we saw videos of people having open heart surgery, fully awake, talking to the people in the operating room, eating orange slices, and only using acupuncture for anesthetic. That really grabbed us. So acupuncture took off first, but really fundamentally Chinese medicine is more a system of herbal medicine, which is what we're here to talk about today. And that came along on the tails of Chinese medicine, of acupuncture, but is definitely growing today.
What would you say, as we look at the last, 30 years, where we are today, how would you characterize the awareness and acceptance of Chinese medicine in the non-Asian American population?
It's very well accepted now. And I think if you ask the average person on the street if Chinese medicine has something to offer and they're interested, the vast majority would say yes. And probably the vast majority knows somebody who's been helped by it, especially where we are on the West Coast here. We're on the right side of the country to be associated with Asia. But also people have had, Aunt Susie had her sore neck treated with acupuncture, and, Grandpa had this or that. So I think there's a generally positive perspective. The thing is, people sort of don't know how to access it very well. They know to maybe seek out an acupuncturist, but one of the big problems is that we licensed acupuncture first, and we require Chinese practitioners to be acupuncturists. And acupuncture is really a specialty in Chinese medicine. The vast majority of medical visits in Chinese medicine in China are for herbal treatment, and only a small percentage go on to treat acupuncture. We've reversed that here. So we end up creating this sort of strange disincentive where people get their insurance will cover their acupuncture, and so they go to use acupuncture for things that it's really not, that's not its forte. So slowly but surely that's changing, and over time people are able to get Chinese herbs in their health food store. Probably the best known herb in the world is ginseng, which is a Chinese herb.
Well, that was my next question. Can you give us some examples of some of the outstanding Chinese herbs that we have heard of, or we likely have heard of, and what we might be using them for?
Sure. Well, mainly people think of ginseng as a sex herb, but really ginseng is almost like a multiple vitamin. It's the most widely applicable herb in Chinese medicine in terms of the kinds of things that it treats. The scientific name for ginseng is Panax, which comes from the Latin word panacea, which just means it treats everything. Ginseng is normally used only by men in Asia, not forbidden for women, but generally treats men's conditions better. So it increases stamina, immune function, enhances digestion, circulation, so many things. And the idea is that you would just take a gram or two a day, starting with men normally about age 30, to enhance libido and these other kinds of things. Easily available, and everybody knows about it. Let's see, what could we talk about next? Licorice is an herb that it's the most widely used herb in Chinese medicine. It's in more Chinese formulas than any other product. And it's another stamina and energy enhancer taken by either gender. It's used for so many things. So it treats inflammatory digestive disorders like heartburn. It increases mental clarity. It's a profound anti-inflammatory, so it's used for joint pain, that sort of thing. And again, small doses, just a gram or two or three a day as needed. Another great example would be the herb astragalus that probably many people have heard of. So again, an energy and stamina booster, but we think of it here more as an immune remedy. So people use large amounts of astragalus to treat acute cold and flu and to support their immune system so that they don't get cold and flu. The beautiful thing about astragalus is that it actually tastes good, which is uncommon in Chinese medicine. So it makes a tasty tea, and it's good for kids. Kids like to drink it. So that's a good introductory herb for people who are looking to start with something in the Chinese herb realm.
Well, it's these three examples are very familiar to me, and I imagine others listening who have seen these represented on their store shelves. You may not have known that these sort of come from a background of traditional Chinese medicine. Now that they're packaged and bottled and pretty, so it's a good sense of awareness here.
Yeah, it's definitely increasing. What we ended up having in America is a lot of herbs and not much herbalism, and that's what we're looking to change with this course that we do at PCC, where we train professional herbalists. It's going to take a generation for this all to get straightened out, but we created a problem here where people sort of were overpromised but under-delivered by nutritional supplement companies that didn't understand the context in which these things were used. So we think of astragalus as an herb for cold and flu, and ginseng as a sex herb, and licorice for heartburn. But really, if they're used in the proper cultural context with an expert who knows how to use them, they're much more successful in the first place. And then we use the proper dose and the proper indications, and people get much better results.
Well, and that gets to sort of the next question, which is, how do the students through PCC Climb benefit from learning about traditional Chinese medicine as they integrate this sort of new skill set into their body of knowledge?
Well, we teach two courses at PCC Climb that are both associated with Chinese medicine. One is the Nutritional Therapist program that includes about 15% of the total subject matter is herbs, and that course, mainly we talk about foods and vitamins, but of the herb material, a good share is Chinese herbs. And then the professional herbalist program is 1/3 Chinese medicine, where we learn the proper use and dose and preparation and context for these things and how they can be used to support the needs of modern Americans.
Excellent. And so both of these classes are available now. And where would you recommend people go to learn more about them? I know we're going to be we'll point people to the Climb Health Herbalism website. That's the pcc.edu.
Yeah, that's the place to go. There's plenty of great detailed information there for people, and they can see some videos. They can read some extended descriptions of these classes, and I think that their questions will be answered if they go there.
Excellent. Are there any other sort of external resources around, I don't know, now I'm just sort of guessing, any sort of certification, any standards body that oversees this area of naturopathic medicine?
Yeah, well, certainly some of our courses are online, so I'm talking to people, all over the country, and this wouldn't apply. But where we are here physically in Oregon, it's a state that's very involved in natural medicine, and we have a number of credentials that would involve the use of Chinese herbs. The two credentials that we're involved with at PCC Climb are the American Herbalist Guild credential, which is called Registered Herbalist, and that's like being board certified as an herbalist. So that's a rigorous multi-year requirement, including the kinds of things that we teach about herbs at PCC.
Sure.
And then the other credential is through the National Association of Nutrition Practitioners, which is, again, a rigorous credential that people apply for after having taken these kinds of courses. And so both of those they give people the opportunity to go out into the work world and apply these things either as consultants or in the industry.
Excellent. Great resources, KP. Thank you. We'll put those in the show notes so you can get links to all of the PCC material as well as these certification resources as well. KP, thank you so much for joining us once again this week. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Well, it's nice to talk to you, Pete. Thanks a lot.
And thank everyone else out there for listening to us. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/PCC Health Professionals, which has become a terrific resource for health and healthcare news thanks to the contributions of the IHP team every single day. If you're listening to the show on Facebook, you can also head over to iTunes and search for it. And you can subscribe for free to ensure that you get each episode each Tuesday as we publish. On behalf of KP Khalsa and PCC Climb, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on the PCC Institute for Health Professionals podcast. Thanks for listening.